Well, yeah, going into my family's pet history, though, it's been varied. When I was just a toddler, we had No, when I was a toddler, we had 2 cats. And that was, they were actually named after a comic that my mother used to read, Nuzzle and Sizzle. They were both pretty good cats. They were friendly. They were kind to us kids. They didn't avoid us. They actually played with us pretty consistently, which is surprising for, toddlers and cats. But I have some pretty fond memories of those two. While they were still around, we eventually ended up picking up 2 more. Well, we actually picked up quite a few more than that, but 2 of them actually stuck around. Because there was a stray in our neighborhood who ended up having a bunch of kittens in a bush outside our house. And then we found the mother in the road. So we ended up taking in all of the kittens. We gave most of them away. We had a lot of friends around the neighborhood that were all too eager to take them. 2 of them got very attached to my brother and I. So Red and Crystal ended up sticking with us. 2 of them ended up developing a habit of sleeping in our beds. Red usually with me, Crystal usually with Zach, but they did swap around occasionally. Yeah, they were good cats. Yeah, sadly we ended up losing those cats, but not to them escaping or any disease or anything or injury, no. It was entirely because my mother was a manipulative, narcissistic bitch and decided to get rid of them and then lie to us saying that our dad was responsible. Just to try and manipulate us into her side of the divorce argument. Yeah, yet another thing that she'll never be forgiven for. But after them, we had a few dogs. There was Mitzi. She didn't last long for very much the same reason. She was a fun little mutt, though. And most definitely a mutt. She was an absolute chaotic mix of who knows what the fuck. She was also an absolute chaos gremlin. One that we definitely had a little trouble raising. I don't think we really had the time or energy to properly take care of her. My mother definitely never put any effort into anything that would have merited keeping her. And my dad was always too busy working to sustain our lives and give us the wonderful house we had back then, even if that was the one from the ghost story I told you guys before. Okay, that's... well, at least the snakes are all easy to kill. I get the feeling that one's poison was going to be particularly dangerous. So yeah, Mitzi didn't last too long, sadly. But after that, we did end up getting 2 more dogs. Ones that were more manageable for the most part. First, there was Max. Max was your standard Jack Russell Fox Terrier. Short-haired, not wiry. But his personality was definitely wiry. That little dude could rip and tear his way through the house like nobody's business. If he got the zoomies, you heard it through the entire house, and he was using the entire house. Got him riled up, he would literally run on the walls. He was also largely a pretty protective dog. He was very kind to us as kids. That was, until he got a little older and started going blind. The moment he started going blind, that became a problem, and we couldn't keep him anymore. And my brother's got the scars to prove it. He didn't handle blindness well and took everything that moved as a threat, including us. There wasn't really much we could do for him. I never found out what really happened to that dog, and I don't think I ever will. But I hope he was happier wherever he ended up. Safer. And there was Brooke. She was half Jack Russell, and the other half was Sheltie. Oh, shit. Okay, huge pitfall. Well, filling in a ton of that real quick. Yeah, she was a Jack Russell Sheltie mix. So think the short hair and body of a Jack Russell. But then she had the colors and the markings of a Sheltie. So that golden brown fur, a couple of black markings on her face, white paws. She was a gorgeous girl. And I'm pretty sure she knew it. She was very tame. Very loving. Liked to show off. Just as excitable as her big brother Max was. She ended up sticking around for a lot longer. In fact, I knew her very well into old age. Sadly, I was not able to keep her in her twilight years. At the time, it was after my mother had bailed the state, and I was moving in with my dad into an apartment that didn't allow pets. Did end up still technically keeping one because Zach couldn't leave his cat behind after my dad's second divorce. But we're able to hide Mikey easily. Brooke, on the other hand, no. Could not be hidden, and she wouldn't be happy there. But I did know one place she would be happy, as much as it hurt me to put her there. Because the man that was nearly my stepfather, the drunken wretch, he did have one thing he was careful and kind with. And that was his dogs. His dogs he actually took good care of. He would never do anything to harm a dog. I respected that much about him, at least. No matter how drunk he got, he would still never raise a hand toward a dog. He had two that he loved quite passionately. I loved them as well. They were the one bright thing about that house when I was stuck there. One of them, Veda, she was a Rottweiler, purebred, but with a bit of a birth defect. Her jaw was misproportioned a little, and she constantly slobbered her water everywhere whenever she tried to drink, and usually spilled bits of kibble as well. Just couldn't close her jaw fully, ever. Thankfully, she didn't drool. It was just water and food that spilled out. Still, she and Brooke were best friends during all of our time there. The two of them were practically inseparable. So, when I needed to hand Brooke away when I moved in with my dad at his new place, I knew that she would be happy there. I knew that she would be safe there, despite my problems with the man. And she most certainly was. I got a few updates. She was doing well. She eventually ended up slightly diabetic, but he took enough care of his pets, even ones that were donated to him, that her being diabetic was never an issue. He still took care of her. She lived to ripe old age and spent her final hours right next to her best friend. Really couldn't ask for a better ending. So as much as it hurt to give her away to him, I'm glad that I did it. And I'm glad that she enjoyed her final years alongside her best friend. Haven't had any dogs since her. Been nothing but cats since. Not that I mind. I started on cats anyway. And dogs are a little high maintenance for the life I live anyway. For the life my whole family lives. So the cats we've had since. First there was my brother's cat, Mikey. He was... I don't have photos for the majority of the pets that I'm discussing here, but Mikey I definitely have photos of, and I'll definitely put one up for you. I know I've shown him on the channel before, but I will never shy away from an opportunity to show Mikey. He was a great cat. He was very, very affectionate. If he wanted some attention, he would tell you, and it would be endless until he got it. But once you gave it to him, he would just cuddle up to you and cling for hours. Or until he got tired of it. He was a little capricious like that. But usually, depending on the hour, really, he would be much more affectionate than that and just stick around with you. You could lay with him on the couch for a good long while and he'd just be laying there purring along. If anybody in the house was taking a nap, he'd immediately crawl up and join them. He was also a bit of a treat fiend. If there was anybody sitting at my dad's desk where the treats were kept, he would immediately be begging. But he was also quite the catward. If anything even remotely startled him, it would be a whole thing for hours. He would just hide and disappear immediately. A stranger comes to the door, he's hiding. Someone he already knows, but doesn't feel he knows well enough, he's hiding. Vacuum gets turned on, he's hiding. Fireworks going off, he's hiding. Make a little too much noise when managing the fire, he's hiding. That cat could not handle anything. It was kind of funny at times, depressing at others. Hey, if you're this far in the video, maybe consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing to the channel. And if you really want to help me out, consider following the link below to check out my book. I also do commissions, so feel free to contact me for that over any of my socials. Now, I'll let you get back to the video. Then there was his first little sister. It's actually, we didn't have her for too long, and now I'm having trouble remembering her name. And we didn't have her long not because anything happened to her, but because my brother went through a bit of a nasty divorce himself, and that cat was there during the end of that relationship and into the divorce, and was much more attached to her. Ended up getting a lot of photos of her afterwards, and she was very happy and comfortable where she ended up, so no hard feelings there. So then there was Mikey's second sister, and the one that's still currently with us. And oh boy, Trouble. She earned that name immediately upon being adopted. She made an absolute mess of my brother's car on the way home. She was already missing an eye when we adopted her. A rescue, of course. She warmed up to the house pretty quickly. Had issues with her other sister, though. She just doesn't like other female cats, which is currently proving a problem with her new sister. But Trouble is generally a pretty good cat. She just has a habit of not listening and doing stupid shit here and there. For one thing, she was most definitely either a farm cat or a feral cat. But we think she has enough tendencies of a house cat for us to be pretty sure that farm cat is the answer there. She definitely still has experience with people and following orders. She figured out the litter box pretty much instantly, although she does prefer to go outside. And that's one of the biggest problems with her. She loves the outdoors and will find every possible excuse to get out there. First it was just her escaping, and that was annoying enough. But then that turned into her begging at the back door to be let out. And after she had escaped so many times and ended up coming back just fine every time, we relented. And the end result was nothing bad's ever really happened with it. The worst was that she, at one point, went outside right before a massive storm and ended up kind of stuck out there for a while because she refused to come out of her hiding spot. Which is not really her fault. She was scared. It happens. But overall, that was the worst thing she ended up doing at any point when getting outside. She was generally pretty good about it. Never gave us any trouble. With that, at least. Always came home in a good time. Still does. Although she doesn't go outside much right now because she hates the snow. Absolutely hates the snow. I've definitely got way too much stuff now. I need to go to the surface and start processing all of this. But yeah, Trouble is a little nutcase when it comes to going outside. But she is also a shockingly polite cat. She'll sit at the door and paw at it. But she's not very loud. Never meows much. She doesn't really beg, she just politely asks. She also only drinks running water. We have to turn the sink on for her to drink from. And then, well, she also has a habit of politely asking for food anytime anyone's cooking or just in the kitchen in general. She will be there, just sitting on the stool. It's always the same stool. Just sitting there watching us from the other side of the kitchen, waiting, asking to be fed. It's kind of adorable. Eventually we lost Mikey, this time due to old age. He was a good boy all the way up to the end. 16 years is good for a cat. We had hoped he'd last longer, but 16 years is good. In the end, he ended up having a stroke, and it took his hind legs from him. And we did our best to help him with his mobility and everything, and we made sure he was comfortable, but now he's out in the garden. Tree planted over him. He loved that garden. He didn't venture out much whenever he got outside. He would stick directly around the house. For the most part. A couple of times he did go adventuring, but then when he got stuck in a tree once, he decided he wanted to stay close to the house and mostly stick to the garden. But he would go hunting around that garden all the time. Ended up catching a couple of voles. So I'm sure he's happy to be buried out there. A couple of times after he was buried, I could have sworn I saw Trouble sitting at his grave. She knew he was there. I'm sure she misses him. And then there's her new sister. My brother went to help a friend with adopting, and he ended up finding one to bring home instead. What he found was another gray tabby with generally the same markings, just a little chubbier, slightly different face, much bigger eyes, and both eyes intact. At first, he wanted to name her Double. That ended up not sticking. We ended up naming her Boots, because she has very large white markings most of the way up her hind legs. Boots is a terrified little gremlin. She runs from everything. She won't even let you pet her unless she's already laying down. But she's generally a pretty nice cat when she doesn't decide to use your arm as a chew toy and scratching post. She's got a bit of a bad habit of that, and I've tried to train it out of her, but I don't think it's sticking. So we haven't had Boots for too long. So I don't have too much to say about her other than just she's terrified of everything, hides at every given opportunity, and just loves to scratch the shit out of people. And clearly it's an affectionate thing, but she clearly also doesn't understand how much damage her claws can do. So that becomes a little bit of a problem. And then that leads us up to now, where we've got Tig locked up in the mudroom. Freshly captured stray that we've been feeding for ages. And a very friendly one who has actually wandered directly into the house before. Just middle of summer when the doors were left open, he just walked right in. So I don't think it'll take him too long to adapt to being a house cat. Besides, we know he's already friends with Trouble. When she goes out on her little adventures, there's several times where we've found the two of them just lounging in the backyard together. Well, now I'm just kind of waiting for all of this iron and thorium to smelt. It's not going to be able to smelt all of it. This charcoal doesn't last very long, it seems. But I'll get a lot of it, at least. Then I should have the inventory space for it all here. But even then, I'll still have my inventory packed pretty full. It'll be about time for me to surface. I'll have enough thorium for now anyway. Come back when I've got even more inventory space and probably more bags. Because I have also picked up... Well, no, actually that heavy hide was already in there. So I should be able to make an ore bag. Actually, can I do that now? 10 copper ore to hide 20 linen scraps. Do I have the scraps? Yes, I do. So I can consolidate my inventory a little more, making one of these. So now with a miner's bag on hand, I can store all of my ore. Suddenly, my inventory isn't half as full. Well, I guess I just extended this mining trip a bit. Thanks for watching, guys, and please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the Envoy of Kairos for many more videos, ranging from gameplay to speed paints, my original Pokemon region, game concepts, and much more. And do try to remember the words of Kairos. Embrace every opportunity to better yourself and the world. You never know when a leap of faith will change your life for the better. See you again soon.